Hey, happy Monday. Brooke and Randy with you. A lot coming your way here on the Randy Karraker Show featuring Brooke Grimsley. Uh, there's a lot going on in the sports world. We had 5 games here. Were you paid? Well, you were doing a lot of it on Saturday.
I was. Yeah, I was watching a lot of things. You were too. You did a
Yeah,
post-game show here, right? On
little post game.
yeah, on Sports Hub STL.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah, it was a
huge.
busy weekend.
You cannot get away from us, and we're giving away stuff.
Get away from
No,
even if you want to,
Yeah.
you can't.
Right. So we're giving away stuff today. And the way I couched it, so we got a group text last night, and Dave Green, our esteemed leader, says that we're going to give away a $250 StubHub gift card if somebody signs up for the newsletter. And what are we going to have? We're going to have like 250 people sign up for the newsletter, right? And we're going to have a drawing, and we're going to be able to give that away, and we'll get the information for you later in the show. Sign up for the Sports Hub STL newsletter before noon today. That is Monday, the 24th. How many days are left in this month, by the way? It's February 24th. How many days left, Brooke?
I don't know how many.
28 in February.
We're right there. You're
25,
telling me
26,
4?
27, 28. 4. Yeah, Matthew's got it.
Oh my gosh.
You don't want to be born
this
on February
month.
29th.
This month has just absolutely flown
Well,
by.
that's because it's only 28 days.
I should have known that, but here's the thing: since we have we lost our job back in October,
We did.
as we know. But after then, I've
we
kind
got a
of
new one
quit
now.
looking at the calendar. Honestly, I'm like, oh, it's February.
Yeah.
Okay.
What
Then
about
we're
days?
just
Like,
saying-
did you ever forget what day it was?
yes,
I do. It's like a
that
kid.
like happens to me
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah. Me too. It's like a kid during summertime. It's great. So anyway, here's the thing. You sign up for the Sports Hub STL newsletter before noon today, the 24th, and you can win a $250 StubHub gift card. And my smart aleck response last night was, oh, cool, a $250 StubHub gift card, unlimited Cardinal tickets.
I saw that in the group text. I'm like, nope.
So sign up now for a chance to win and for more exclusive prizes. Existing subscribers are already entered. Matthew Rocky was already beside himself, courtesy of CarShield.
You could get some tickets for cheap though, because last year wasn't there some tickets like as low?
Free.
Well, they
All you
have
had to do-
that Budweiser brew deck, which I think is that the one that you can get some
the
tickets.
Terrace, the Bud Terrace.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You can get that for like maybe 5, 10, right? Or
Right,
it's around
yeah.
15. It's a good deal
It is,
that they
yeah.
have. But then there was also some other games towards the end of the season where when we were looking it up, they were extremely cheap to go over the
Like
ballpark.
zero. There were tickets for zero. All you had to do was pay for your handling fees, and it was good.
Yeah.
So we had quite a weekend of Cardinal baseball rumors, which was fun. On Saturday, we get word from Mark Feinstand and our friend John Denton and Brian McTaggart of MLB.com. Mark Feinstand is their national writer, comes up with a lot of great stories, breaks a lot of stories. McTaggart covers the Astros, and of course, John Denton covers the Cardinals. Those three get together and turn out a story at MLB.com that the Cardinals and Astros had rekindled talks for Nolan Arenado. And then, as a good reporter does, our friend Katie Wu from The Athletic subsequently goes to John Mozeliak and says, what's up with this? And Mozeliak said, no, nothing, no traction, nothing imminent, just the basic nothing. There's nothing to see here. I think, and Brooke, you can explain why we feel this way. Both can be true.
Both can be true, because I think that when you talk about the people who are involved, because I think a lot of people just focus on, oh, it's just one person. John Denton was saying that. No, he worked in conjunction with those other reporters that you mentioned who definitely have more on the Astro side as well for this story. So I think that things have re-engaged. I believe that point, but then also things maybe have not advanced as of right now in that Katie Wu report. Is that how you were kind of gathering it?
Yeah, it is. And I think there's a couple of points to be made here. One of the points is that even in the story at MLB.com, the way the sentence was written was that Arenado could rescind his no trade and give the Astros the opportunity to gain his services. So there was definitely nothing concrete, just that the Cardinals and Astros had rekindled, and there was a chance that Arenado could give up his no trade. The other part of this that I think is notable is that Katie Wu wrote a spectacular piece on Friday at The Athletic, breaking down everything that happened with Nolan Arenado's offseason. And multiple sources told Katie that from the Cardinals' perspective and the Astros' perspective, this trade of Arenado to Houston was at the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
And then just like the old Rams offense, first down, second down, third down, fourth down, they don't make it across the goal line. We know that in St. Louis. We know it well. So if I'm in John Mozeliak's shoes, having experienced the heartbreak of not being able to get the deal done, I'm not going to say anything positive or optimistic about being able to move Nolan Arenado until I moved him.
Especially if it was that close, like she was reporting, where the deal was almost done and then it got squashed. Do you think that maybe the Tucker deal initially turned off Nolan Arenado, but then this Walker deal, Christian Walker bringing him into the organization, which obviously Christian Walker is fantastic at first base. Do you think that maybe that could change his perspective on the Astros a little bit, and that's why these talks possibly have re-engaged?
And I think that's part of it. And then the Astros get to spring training and they ask Jose Altuve, who had volunteered to move to left field if they got Alex Bregman back. They ask Altuve, hey, will you work out in left field? And he does, and he's willing to play left field.
That changes a lot. That
to me is the biggest smoking gun. The biggest smoke here is that Altuve's in left field because the Astros signed Brendan Rodgers, a second baseman who used to be with Colorado. He's been around the block a little bit, but Brendan Rodgers isn't going to be a needle mover for them. They can move Isaac Paredes, who they got from the Cubs last year in the Christopher Morel deal. They could move him to third base or second base, but he's not a very good defensive player. But they could move him over there and then have Arenado play third. So at least at the corners, you'd have a couple of Gold Glovers.
Makes sense.
I don't think that the Arenado or the Altuve move would be happening unless they were planning on having another infielder on the roster.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then we have a comment here from Cronky Hater. And make sure that you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And also you can send in anything that you want to the chat and we'll respond to it when we can.
Hater.
Hi, Cronky Hater. I know that Randy likes that title for that username.
We beat the Avalanche last night. We played to a 0-0 draw on the pitch in the kits.
There you go.
Against Cronky's Colorado Rapids on Saturday. So.
And he said, just when I thought I was done reading Arenado news, John Denton pulls me back in. And you're right. Also in Katie Woo's article too, the quote from Arenado that he said on Friday, just kind of in regards to this too, I think also paints a picture of where he's at mentally with this whole process. Because as you mentioned, this deal with the Astros at first, as we knew during the offseason, was almost done. Then obviously it didn't work out. But Arenado told reporters on Friday, I've got a lot of goals and I truly feel in my heart I can achieve all of them. I think about the Hall of Fame and I'd love to accomplish that. But just like with the trade stuff, when I start thinking about it, I remind myself that I need to get back to work.
He does need to work. I think he's already a Hall of Famer. I think if Nolan Arenado would retire
he wants that
today,
championship.
He does. And it's probably not going to happen here. He turns 34 this season.
Yeah.
And the Cardinals are pretty honest about saying we aren't planning on winning a world championship this year. Going to Houston with that starting rotation with a guy like Yordan Alvarez, who's one of the best hitters in baseball. You have a guy like Altuve.
Also, that park would be beneficial to him.
It would be huge for him.
Yes.
It would change his career. It would make him. It would turn him from a guy that some people might not vote for the Hall of Fame into a Hall of Famer.
Yes.
A clear cut, no question Hall of Famer. So there's a lot for him. And I think there's a couple of big things. Number one, part of this has to be how much the Cardinals are willing to pay for Nolan Arenado to not pay for play for them. The Cardinals, especially now at this point in their existence, they don't want to pay people to not work for them, whether it's the manager or the president of baseball operations or a player like they did with Tino Martinez. They did it with Mike Leake. They've had a lot of trades where the Cardinals have paid a good portion of a player's salary to not play for them. The Cardinals will do that with Arenado, but not pay most of his salary to not play for them.
No. So if you're in Arenado's shoes, then what exactly is holding you back? Because from our opinion, the
my feet are
Astros
super sore because I'm two size. I got shoes that are 2 sizes too small. That's what's holding me back.
No, I'm just saying. What do you think, Randy? What do you think would be holding him back? Because if he's saying that he wants to be on a team that's competing now, I would say that the Astros are in a better position than the Cardinals are. Obviously,
and in that division, the American League West, Texas is a threat. Seattle hasn't done anything during the offseason.
Yeah.
I don't see them. Oakland made little changes. Well, Oakland isn't a threat. We know the Angels aren't a threat. No. So it's the two Texas teams. If you're Arenado, you look at that. Okay, so that's almost entree into the playoffs if I do my job. Now, the other thing he said is, I don't want to uproot my family. Well, if I were him,
he will though for a championship. He also said in that quote earlier that I read that he also believes he can achieve all that stuff that he wants to for the Hall of Fame. All of that, a championship would do that. So I think he would uproot his family for that.
I would think so. And here's the other point, Brooke, that we don't look at because we aren't swimming in those waters. But if he goes to Texas, he doesn't have any state income tax.
Oh,
So for
that's
that,
beneficial
yeah,
for his family.
for that huge amount of money that he's making, and regardless of who's paying it, he's getting it, $35 million. So I would think that would be another reason that you'd want to go to Texas. So if we're trying to be logical here, if
Yeah.
you're in Arenado's shoes, everything seems to be there for you. If you're Houston getting Arenado, you've already moved Altuve to left field. Most things seem to be there. I'm guessing that the holdup here, we go back to what we talked about earlier, is money. That it's going to come down to the Astros knowing that there's nobody else competing for Arenado's services. So they're saying, you know what, rather than you guys paying $15 million to take Arenado, for us to take Arenado off your hands, how about if you give us 25? I'm guessing that this is all coming back to money.
I think so. I think it all goes back to payroll. And real quick, I wanted to touch on this from Cronky Hater because I thought this was a really good comment here. I don't think he's very happy at the lack of interest from teams that he has on his list. We always go back to that list, right? And it seems like the Astros were not initially on that small list of 5 teams. We know it was the Dodgers, Padres, Phillies, Mets. Is there one more that I'm missing?
The Red Sox were. I don't think
and the
New
Red
York.
Sox.
According to Katie's piece,
not the Yankees.
But Houston was.
Yeah. That's the confusing part is like who is on the short list exactly? Because you've seen so many different reports of that. I wonder if that was kind of a little bit of a gut punch for Arenado where you were hoping that there'd be a little bit more buzz and then there wasn't this offseason.
See, I think that he is probably thinking of himself as the pre-2024 Nolan Arenado, where if you're the Dodgers, you would have had interest. But then 2024 really did happen. And you experienced a second consecutive year of baseball decline. Might not have been your fault, but it might have been. But either way, you're going to be 34 and your performance has dropped off for 2 consecutive years. If I'm going to pay a bunch of money for a player, that's going to concern me.
Yeah. And going back to payroll, because I think that this is a really interesting story too that came up this weekend, because in the past, I brought up the Angels as possibly a team, a landing spot for Nolan Arenado. And this weekend, Angels owner Artie Moreno, he had some very interesting comments about the state of where he's at financially. He said that he's losing money. He's losing $50 million or more. That's going to get a lot of fans excited for the season, right? When an owner complains about losing 50 million or more, especially when you spent all that money on Anthony Rendon. And of course, he's injured again and out for the season. Baseball. Yes. But I think that it's interesting just tying this into Nolan Arenado. You're talking about a payroll dump. We've seen owners be more honest and open about how they feel about losing money. You even had in the past where DeWitt talked about losing money. It's interesting that you're having these owners being more honest about that.
Well, and we've got some quotes here, but one of the things that we have to consider when we're talking about rich people saying they're losing money,
billionaires,
that means that I expected to make $60 million last year, but I only made 40. So that to them is losing money.
Yeah.
It's not, I had to pay more than I took in, that I actually did suffer loss. It's I didn't have the profit that I expected. For them, that's what a loss is. For us, that's different. Oh, I'm throwing my stuff around here. Here, I've got my orange mouse here. So I think that we have to take everything these guys say, the owners, with a grain of salt. And do we have we have the DeWitt quote? Do we have it up? But we have the
in the past, yes, where it was brought up. I think a lot of people remember from 2020 because it was on 590 The Fan, which we're actually in the building of 590 The Fan, that DeWitt Jr. said this about losing money. And remember, it was the quote where he was talking about that baseball is not as profitable for owners as people might think. And he said the industry isn't very profitable, to be honest. He said that. And I think the players understand that. They think owners are hiding profits. There's been a bit of a distrust there.
Well, number one, I get the players' distrust, but the fact of the matter is the owners own and they don't have to open their books. But if we look at research done by people who do a lot of really good hard work. Matthew, do you still have those numbers, that tweet that you read to me that I had? So again, everything's relative. This is what we know what Bill DeWitt said. It's not as profitable as, can you read that one more time? I'm sorry.
So Bill DeWitt Jr., he said that the industry isn't very profitable, to be honest. And I think that the players understand that. They think owners are hiding profits. There's been a bit of a distrust there.
Okay. So let's just go back to it's not very profitable. Again, let's speak relatively. And I actually tweeted this right after and I don't remember tweeting this because I've got a lot of tweets on my Twitter.
Yes, you do, Randy.
Page. But so here's, Matthew, what I put out with my great research at that point.
So, Randy, you pointed out that they had a 12% profit on $72 million. The $72 million profit in 2020 was a 12% profit off of their revenue. And essentially pointing out that that's a better piece of revenue than they're getting from any of their other companies. And I also came across a really good article from Baseball Prospectus that came out this would have been June 10th, 2020. It's crazy that we were arguing about billionaires cash in 2020 like this. But we were, and he this is from a writer of Baseball Prospectus, Rob Maines, who before he was a writer for Baseball Prospectus and got into baseball, he worked on Wall Street. And he had a comment and she goes, when I was a business advisor, I had to have a license to be an investment advisor, which means I could talk to the public about investments. If I were to tell somebody there's an investment that will give you a 12% plus return over 24 years, the best case scenario is that I lose my license. The worst case scenario is that I wear orange, which is really not my color. So to Randy's point, the profits are fine. It's just they're not as gang busting, oil kind of robber baron kind of stuff that they were in the early 2000s or probably prior to that. And so now they're a little bit tweaked by that. I want to go back to the Arenado thing just really quickly. JJ, I just everyone's talking about Nolan Gorman. Everyone's talking about JJ Weatherholt. The idea of a youth revival has really just kind of evaporated right in front of our eyes kind of in the spring. And yet at the same time, every time a young player goes up, now I'm thinking, hey, JJ Roby looked pretty good in that spring training game. And so it's just the one thing that I was going to get excited for this year, which was, hey, let's watch the young guys play, is gone apparently. And now instead it's no, we can turn from 82, 83 wins to 87, 89 without any actual roster improvement, which is not a conversation that I'm buying into in any way, shape, or form. And I don't know why a fan would either.
Brandon Smith, you see on the screen, joins us on the YouTube chat. He says, it's too late. Keep Nato and try to win. This reset is strictly at the minor league level at this point. But here's the thing. You're trying to win. And at the moment, they still have Miles Michaelis in their rotation. They still have Steven Matz in their rotation. They still have Eric Fetty in their rotation.
Yeah.
I can pretty much guarantee you that middle of your rotation, that 2, 3, 4, by the way, let's count Sonny Gray as 1. If Sonny Gray is 2 or 3, you're fine. You aren't winning with that pitching. You aren't making the playoffs with that pitching.
Yeah, no, you're not. And so the youth movement was more at the positional players or for the positional players really than with the starting rotation. I know that there was some rumors early on that they were going to approach some guys about possibly moving them. I'm assuming that Sonny Gray was in that conversation, but Sonny Gray then reportedly said that he wanted to stay here in St. Louis and that he's buying into that reset. It is interesting though, because this is all about payroll. So even this youth movement is about payroll, right? So it's just in a prettier package when you say youth movement, but really this is just about cutting down costs on payroll, which they also did say in that same press conference when they were talking about it. They said youth movement plus we need to cut down on payroll, and Arenado was supposed to be a part of that cut down.
Yes.
They did move on from Gibson. They did move on from Lance Lynn. So those were some budget cuts, I guess you could say. But then again, nobody's really picking up those guys.
No.
They still haven't been picked up as of right now. So they are trying to reduce that payroll, but they're also more or less packaging it. Because doesn't it sound nicer when you say, we're going to let those younger players play? You guys have been asking for that. Here we're doing that for you right now. And at the same time, we get to shave off some of that money from payroll.
And I do think there's one guy that's really affected. If Ali is able to follow through on what he said, and that doesn't always happen, but he says he wants to play guys at positions and just toss them out there and let them get their at-bats, okay? I think the only guy that's really hurt by this is Alec Burleson.
He's the odd man out.
Yeah, because Newt Barr, you'll have Donovan in left, Newt Barr in center, Walker in right. It'll be Wynn at short, Gorman at second, Contreras at first, and then one of the catchers. So I think the only guy and Ciani, but I don't know how much upside Ciani has. I don't know if Ciani is a division winning center fielder anyway. So, but Burleson and Ciani would seem to be the guys that would be hurt the most by this.
Well, with Arenado here, it clogs up your outfield. It clogs up a lot of different positions. We have a comment from Cards Are Incompetent. Wow, that is a very interesting name. Hello. Very direct on how you feel about things right now. And he said, Nato makes the team better, and Gorman is not a third baseman. And so JC isn't ready. You're not wrong. I mean, Arenado definitely does make this team better, especially when you look at things defensively at third. I would, in a perfect situation, if we're saying this team is competing and wants to not just make the playoffs but move past it, I believe that Nolan Arenado would make that team so much better. But I think that we all were a little bit more bought in with this youth movement of you're going to have growing pains. What do you think about with youth? Growing pains. There's going to be a lot of growing pains. And Nolan Gorman, I want to know what you have with guys. That's the other point of the youth movement, is getting those guys an opportunity so you know what they have. We have seen a little bit of that potential with Nolan Gorman, but we really, I don't think, have fully tapped into what that potential is for him.
And I know you say, and I respect you when you say that Gorman can't play third. I've never seen the guy play third.
That's the point.
But in talking to coaches who coached and managed him at the minor league level, they say that he's got what it takes to be an above average major league third base. I don't think he's going to be Arenado or Roland, but he can get the job done, at least from what I hear from people that have coached him and managed him at the minor league level.
A point of parliamentary procedure.
Yes, sir.
You have. I know it's pronounced Arenado, but when we shorten it, isn't it NATO? See, this is my problem. Now I have another issue with Arenado's name.
NATO.
It's NATO.
Oh, I don't see now. Now I'm never going to shorten it to NATO because I hate that.
You're frying my brain here.
I hate that.
Okay, but what if we do NATO? And then all of a sudden he's getting together with other people to try to preserve the peace.
Oh.
Yeah, then he gets invaded by Russia. It gets really tricky.
Yeah. Cardinals won't get anything for Arenado. I say keep him. It's just a salary dump, and I don't mind spending DeWitt's money. From the day this happened, and I'm with you. But from the day they announced that they were going to do this, all they were going to get, and it might as well literally be a lottery ticket. All they were going to get was a lottery ticket. What they need to do with Houston, not need to do, but what's going to happen is, when they come to a financial agreement, either Dana Brown, the general manager of the Astros, will say to John Mozeliak, or John Mozeliak will ask for the worst Astros prospect. Like, they've got a 35-year-old left-handed reliever named Steven Okert in camp with them. It'll be somebody like that, right? A guy that pitched last year at Double-A at 35 years old. That's what the Cardinals are going to get back for Nolan Arenado. It's the return is not going to be impressive. So don't get your hopes up that the Cardinals are actually going to get anything for Nolan Arenado except for salary relief. It's going to be kind of like when the Cubs traded Darvish to the Padres. They got 4 lottery tickets and none of them are winners. And that's what the Cardinals are going to get for Arenado. It's going to be a metaphor. Speaking, it's going to be a lottery ticket.
It is. It's just a payroll dump. And they said that, right? Yeah, we're going back to the press conference of it was really packaged prettier PR-wise of this is a youth movement, which is good. Of course, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but this was more about payroll, more or less. And that's what's going on with Nolan Arenado, is that they're trying to move on from that payroll, which goes back to what we were talking about with Artie Moreno and just other owners. We've had those comments that we read from DeWitt in the past, and you even had Ricketts talk about payroll and money as well for Major League Baseball, that really it's not that profitable, is what a lot of them seem to be saying, to be a baseball owner. By the way, Artie Moreno, you could have moved on from the Angels. You could have. You had that opportunity. So it's a little weird, I think, for him to come out and complain about losing 50 or 60 million, which, by the way, Ken Rosenthal had a very important part on this, where he talked about adding insult to injury. And this is from Rosenthal responding to Artie Moreno's claims about losing 50 to 60 million that he was talking about this past weekend. Rosenthal said, adding insult to injury, the Los Angeles Angels do not have insurance on third baseman Anthony Rendon or any other player, according to sources familiar with the club's policy. The reason owner Artie Moreno does not wish to incur the additional costs. One industry source briefed on players' insurance policies estimates the Angels might have received a net benefit of at least $50 million on Rendon. So you can't come out there and complain when that's also the case. And when you're talking about losing money, especially specifically for the Angels, Shohei Ohtani, obviously you're going to lose money not having him around anymore. Ticket sales is something that we've heard the Cardinals talk about, the Angels, other teams too, the declining ticket sales.
Yeah, and that's real for the Cardinals. That's they now estimate that their ticket revenue losses are going to be greater than their television losses. We know the television losses are $18 million. So if your ticket revenue losses are 20 to 22, then all of a sudden that's $40 million that you had last year that you don't have this year. Now, you gave Lynn and Gibson about 22 million between them. I think Andrew Kittredge probably made 4 or 5, and you have a couple of other people that kind of fell by the wayside. But the Cardinals are going to have, relative to last year, losses of revenue. That doesn't mean they're going to lose money, but they're going to have losses of revenue.
What do you think that it means that you have more and more owners talking about this? And look, I think they could also open up their books so that we can actually see how much revenue, net revenue, that these owners are getting in. If we want to be kind of completely honest, if you're revealing a little bit, then go ahead and just be fully transparent. But when you hear the DeWitts talk about it, when you hear the Angels, when you hear other teams, other owners talk about the money that they're losing, are they preparing us for something?
Probably, yeah. And especially giving up the $550 million that ESPN saying we aren't going to pay $550 million for this product. But it's amazing to think about. I read a piece yesterday that the Apple deal or the Roku deal, I think it's the Apple deal that Major League Baseball has, provides teams $300,000 each, which is less than half of the minimum salary. The minimum salary is $760, and they've got it's the Roku deal, and they're getting $300,000 a team, less than half. For that national TV deal. And the reason that ESPN doesn't want to pay $550 is because Roku is paying $10 million and Apple's paying something like $50 million for basically the exact same thing. So I don't blame ESPN in this regard at all.
No. We have one more comment from Bill Downton, Downton, I believe that's how you pronounce that, before we go to Ricky Horton, who's waiting to talk to us down in Jupiter, Florida. And Bill says, so disappointed. I want to see the young guys play. I'm talking about Weatherholt, JC, and Scott and Davis.
So Scott will probably start the year in the minors, I would think.
Yeah.
So JC has a chance to be here. Weatherholt is going to spend some time in the minor leagues.
But with Arenado here, then that kind of pushes the JC timeline back.
I think there's 2 bench guys that are locked in, and then you've got a group of 4 that can be the other guys. So I think there's a chance. All right, we are going to get to Ricky Horton in just a moment, but we want you to know that we have a great event coming up on Thursday night. Thursday night, you need to join us for our big kickoff party at Hot Shots on South Lindbergh in Limay. It's a brand new Hot Shots location, and it's amazing. And we're going to be there. We're going to have Blues game on TV against the Washington Capitals. You're going to have an opportunity to win tickets and merchandise and more. It's going to be a pretty cool night, and I hope that you will join us, and Brooke hopes that you will join us, and we'll just have an incredible
time. Just
me?
You? I think you hope so too.
I said I hope that you join us, and Brooke does.
We all will.
So we want to see you there, and we're going to have the whole team there, and you can join us at Hot Shots, the home of St. Louis sports fans since 1990. All right, joining us now on the phone on the road in Florida is our friend, Cardinal broadcaster Ricky Horton. Ricky, good morning. How you doing down there?
I'm doing great. Good to be with you guys, and glad that spring training has started. And spring training is always a bunch of fun, and I've been having a lot of fun down here. I've been down here actually since mid-January because I came down for the fantasy camp and stayed. So I've got a little bit of a tan going, but good to see you guys.
Well, our late friend Mike Shannon always used to say that he needed to get the lay of the land. He needed to scout things out, so he always got there in January too. It's a smart move on your part.
I actually, it's actually in the maybe one of the quintessential baseball books, Ball 4, that apparently Jim Bouton said that was a Whitey Ford thing, that if you got to spring training early, got a tan, you'd look thinner and in better shape. So I remember reading that when I was in college, and all during my years of playing, I did the same thing. I just came early, and it kind of goes along with the great George Kissel teaching that he would tell us all the time. He'd say, come early, stay late, and you'll be around longer. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that.
Okay, Ricky, one more thing before we get into serious baseball stuff. Occasionally, Ricky Horton will wake up to a text from me where I have circled his mug on an immaculate grid. What's your level of appreciation, Ricky, that I utilize you in immaculate grid occasionally?
I think the coolest thing that happens is when you send that to me and I'm actually on my own immaculate grid working it myself. That's like a perfect storm. I actually love it when you do that. I enjoy, that's a great for those that want to learn about baseball. It's a good mind game for studying baseball in general. And when I get to be a part of it, it reminds me of when I was a kid, I was a Stratomatic player. And when I first got into the big leagues and realized I had a Stratomatic card, that was maybe cooler than having a baseball card, because I played that game for hours and hours and hours and hours, keeping score and doing all that stuff. And now I'm an adult keeping score for hours and hours and hours.
Ricky, it's great hearing from you. And of course, there's a lot of storylines to follow this spring training, but I was wondering if there's a certain player, whether it's a veteran or even a young guy, a Cardinals prospect, whatever it may be, somebody who has stood out to you during this spring training so far.
Well, the guy that stands out is kind of easy to pick, and is JJ Weatherholt, not just because he played well yesterday, and he was also, what's pretty cool about what he did in the game yesterday is he was doing it against big league pitching too. So you always have to kind of discount that. Are they pitching? Is he hitting against a minor league guy, or are they pitching to minor league guys? So you always have to kind of discount a little bit. But he was up against big league pitching. But what more than how he's played, watching him walk around, he's walking around like a big leaguer. And I don't even know if I can explain, Brooke, what that means to me, but I know it when you see it. There's a confidence, not arrogance, but confidence, comfortable with who he is. He's not kind of looking over his shoulder. I mean, to me, that's been the fun part of watching JJ Weatherholt.
So with that being said, it's his first full year pro. He did play 3 years of college ball, had 577 at-bats at West Virginia. Do you think he's a fast-track guy, Rick?
He may be. He may be. You always, again, that you mentioned Mike Shannon. Mike Shannon was always loved to say too at spring training, and be careful of the fool's gold. When somebody has a good start, or either a pitcher or a hitter, and so he may be exposed at some point. The more that he's get at bats he gets, somebody might say, oh, he can't hit this pitch very well. So the book gets out fast, and the book is now digital, so it gets out even faster. So and they're not going to forget it, and they're going to keep pounding it. But regardless, I think he has that opportunity to be that kind of guy. Yes. And, it's like, Quinn Matthews on the pitching side, who I have not seen pitch yet. I think he's pitching tomorrow, and he's going to do it in a road game. So I will not be there to see that. But boy, am I anxious to watch him pitch, because he's certainly fast track too.
Ricky, what have you seen from Nolan Arenado? We discussed earlier in the show just kind of the trade rumors picking back up, and I'm sure that they'll never go away, of course, when you're talking about Arenado, because that's what John Mozeliak said. It was priority 1, 2, and 3 this offseason to move him. So what have you seen from Arenado this spring training? What is his kind of attitude like right now towards the team, and how he's kind of approaching things while these just trade rumors continue to loom around him?
Yeah, I think attitude's the most important thing to look for. Forget kind of how he's playing. Although he looks really good physically, but I think the fact that he's not kind of moping around, and nobody's moping around with him. He's just kind of business as usual, and that's what you hope for out of a veteran and a pro. And of course, he is that. And everything that Ollie has said about kind of told us about where he is with his teammates is, as Ollie said, he's here until he's not. And that's kind of true for all of us, isn't it? I mean, honestly, that's kind of the way life is, and the way all jobs are. And you're kind of there until you're not, and you don't kind of overthink what might happen. Now, it's okay for us to think about that, Brooke and Randy, of course, and we, it's kind of part of the fun of sports and baseball and life in general. But for a player, I think the best he can kind of block that out, and I think he's blocked it out extremely well.
Hey, Rick, do you think the Cardinals know much about Nolan Gorman at third? We had a person on our YouTube chat earlier that suggested that Gorman can't play third. I have never seen Nolan Gorman play third. What sense do you get from the people that have been around him at the minor league level and have watched him? What do they think about Gorman as a third baseman?
Yeah, I think they moved Gorman from third to second initially, not because they didn't think he could play third, but because, it just was going to be a position that was blocked, and second base would be more open. I was actually more worried about him becoming a second baseman. Second base is not that easy a position to play with pivots and double plays. And, your throws are not as, you're always throwing against your body on a double play, and he's got that down pat. I mean, he's done a good job, I think, of learning second base. He's not a Gold Glover, but he's good. I mean, he's really good, I think. I don't have any concern. I think he's got the arm to play third. I think he's, certainly has a history there. I've seen him play third a couple of times when we first saw him, like in spring games and all that. But I'm not that worried about him going back to a position that he's played before.
Ricky, what about the starting rotation? Because we're talking about the youth movement, especially a lot with the more positional players. But with the starting rotation, you mentioned Quinn Matthews as a player that a lot of people are excited to see, and I am too. But also Michael McGreevy getting a chance possibly as a starter during the spring training. And we talked to Matthew Liberatore last week, and he's also looking to be a starter for the
Yep.
Cardinals. So how do you get the youth movement time, I guess, in that starting rotation? How does that work out?
Well, it almost seems like, pitching, there's this runway conversation. That's the word that everybody's using. They're going to give guys kind of a chance to just fail and just still get out there and still go. And I think that's going to happen with some of the young guys. But I think with the pitching, I think what you're thinking about in terms of all those pitchers, you got to give it to somebody first. Who gets the runway first? And Palante obviously has earned the runway, and the Eric Fetties of the world, and Sonny Gray and Miles Michaelis. They're going to be there. But so the question is, who's kind of next in line? I don't think that's known yet. I think that's going to kind of materialize. And I know Matthew said the same thing to me that, this week. He said, I'm going to train to throw 5 innings, because if I end up throwing 1, I can make that adjustment. If I train to throw 1, I'm not going to be able to throw 5. So he just likes the thought of kind of stretching out to be a starter if that's needed. And, we've all been around baseball long enough to know that something's going to happen somewhere. Either, somebody's going to have a tired arm, or, they're going to get delayed, and hopefully not a major injury, but, it's bound to happen. That's why you love to have 7 starters really ready to go, because you might not have 7 by the time you get to opening day.
Rick Horton has a unique ability to evaluate catchers because he was a major league pitcher. A different view of it than Brooke or I have. Matthew Liberatore also told us that Pedro Pages is his favorite catcher that he's ever thrown to. As you watch these two catchers, Herrera and Pages, what do you see, and how do you think things play out here during the course of spring training?
Well, I think if when you evaluate the two of them, the question is going to hinge on do you need to score runs, or do you need to stop scoring runs? And I think that with Herrera can hit. I don't know that he's going to hit for that much more power than Pages. Maybe he will, but he's a good hitter. He really is. His bat to ball skills are really good, and I think when he was playing, his first year, that's when the Cardinals kind of went on a roll. I think he can be an important right-handed bat. There's a ton of left-handed bats in the Cardinals system, and I think it's especially in the minor leagues. We've seen them, 8 of them, or maybe more in the game yesterday. So I think to have a good right-handed bat is important. If you're talking about handling a pitching staff, Pages is ahead of him. He frames better at this point, certainly throws better, and I know Herrera's working at it, and I know he spent the offseason trying to develop his arm strength so he could throw better to second, but he's not where Pages is at this moment.
What about Wilson Contreras? Speaking of catchers, now a former catcher, Wilson Contreras. What have you seen from him at first base, just observing? And we talked to John Denton last week. He mentioned that he actually looks like he put on some more weight and looks a little bit bigger going into this spring training.
He does, and I think he's thinking pure offense right there. He's thinking I'm going to take this ability now to and I don't have to, almost all the worries about catching. Think about that. It's like a big weight off your shoulder, and it's like, okay, now I get to really do the thing I love to do, which is hit and drive the baseball. And I think he wants to be a force on the offensive side. And playing first base is again, another one of those positions that you kind of take for granted and say that's an easy position to play. And you watch Paul Goldschmidt do it for all these years, and you think, oh, that's not that hard, until somebody else does it next to him, and you realize, oh, we're going to miss that. So we're going to miss the defense of Paul Goldschmidt. I think we should get ready for that. Really. Like you miss the defense of Yadier Molina when he's not there. It's not criticizing who follows, but when you got somebody who's really good at it, it's a tough act to follow. And if he can just be average and serviceable, I think that's all that it takes. Jose Oquendo told me he's progressing well. I asked Jose about him. I've seen Jose and Stubby Clapp and others work with him on his footwork around the bag. I think the common line right now about Contreras is the concern is not so much, can he play first base physically and do the things he needs to do. He's still working on scooping the ball better. That's one thing he's not good at yet, but he's working at it. But I think the bigger thing with Contreras is he in the right position all the time? Because that involves, again, more thinking than you might, realize that, are you at the cutoff at the right time? Are you in the right place? Are you trailing the guy to second base? Are you lined up correctly? Do you understand the situation involved? There's some preparatory thinking every time a pitch is thrown for a first baseman. And again, are you playing first base correctly when you're holding a run or getting off the bag? There's a lot of little nuances to playing first base, and he's getting the fire hose treatment right now, learning all of that.
Rick, a couple of more things. Number one, I thought you made a great point yesterday on your broadcast on the Cardinal Radio Network and KMOX here in town about somebody maybe accidentally asking for a replay. Remember when all the Latin players, Manny Ramirez and Cabrera, the shortstop, and they had all this pine tar all over their helmets, and they would touch their helmets to get pine tar on their hands? I could absolutely see somebody going to their helmet and inadvertently asking for a challenge on a pitch. And you made that point yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of made it flippantly, but then, I mean, as we talked about, it's like, I mean, it could happen, and maybe you get to say no, I don't know, maybe you take it back, I don't know, but that's the deal. You tap your head twice, and guys do that all the time to get their helmet straight. It makes me think of Daryl Porter used to use it. We had a sign with the late Daryl Porter back in the 80s, and we're celebrating the 40-year anniversary of the 85 Cardinals. And Daryl had a great postseason that season. But one of our series of signs had to do with, he would change the signs when he went to his mask. He would go to his mask, and that was the way to change the signs from one set of signs to another. And he did it one day. He went to his mask and changed the signs, and he got crossed up. And somebody went to him and said, "Daryl, I mean, you went to your mask." He goes, "No, I was just fixing my glasses." Well, how do we know that? I mean, so the point is, you can do some things inadvertently. And I did think about that yesterday when I made that point. And, who knows? It might happen. But so far, actually, I like the ABS challenge system. And, I might lose my kind of my old school card by saying that, but I do like it.
We do have some questions from the chat, just real quick, Ricky, before we say goodbye to you, and you can enjoy the rest of your time in Jupiter and continue that tan. So Cronky Hater says, what is Ricky's season projection? So I'm assuming just kind of your thoughts on what you're predicting the Cardinals to achieve this season.
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's also a hard question. I think they're going to compete. I think, it's going to be hard to, I think you'd have to say that the favorite at this point is probably Milwaukee, but Milwaukee who knows what's going to happen with Milwaukee. I think the Cubs are better. I think the Cardinals are actually going to be better. But it's hard for me to pick them to be a division champion, but I don't throw that out of the realm of possibility. What you really just hope is that every player gets better. Again, I go back to 85, and I've been saying this, and I know it's apples and oranges, but we were predicted to come in last place in 1985. We did have an influx of a couple of important players, John Tudor and George Hendrick went, and we got Tudor, and we also got Jack Clark, and but even Tudor and Clark hadn't had blowout all-star seasons before coming a Cardinal. Everybody just got better at the same time. So long answer to this question: can the Cardinals win the division if everybody gets better at the same time? The answer is yes, but that's asking a lot.
Ricky, it's sports, and it should be fun, and you and John Rooney make it fun. Thanks so much for the time today. We love having you on, and thanks for joining us here.
Yeah, you bet. Good to be with you guys.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. We'll see you at the ballpark. That's Ricky Horton, Cardinal broadcaster. You can hear him on KMOX and the Cardinal Network. And you can just go to, I think, KMOX.com and get all the games. And just go to Cardinals.com, all the games that are going to be broadcast on the radio.
It's always great hearing from him. And we do have some breaking news kind of coming up about sports betting. We saw what you guys said on the YouTube chat, so we're going to address that. But first, we have to talk about Educated Spirits.
And Sports Hub STL is sponsored in part by Educated Spirits' new Rivals Bourbon Collection featuring the Black and Gold. Taste the tradition in every sip from Educated Spirits, a company created by our very own Mizzou Tigers basketball analyst and former Tiger star Kareem Rush. He's on the air after each Mizzou basketball game here on Sports Hub STL. And this brand isn't just a product, it's a celebration of legacy and culture and the connections we share over a great drink. Educated Spirits is here to elevate every sip one story at a time. To pre-order, visit educatedspirits.io. Even if you're not a bourbon drinker, support one of our favorite Tigers and grab a bottle to display at home. That's educatedspirits.io for the new Black and Gold Bourbon. Educated Spirits, taste the tradition in every sip. Cheers.
Cheers. All right, we just talked about some breaking news coming in, and actually thanks to a lot of people in the comments who were able to bring this to our attention while we were talking to Ricky Horton, but it looks like Missouri sports betting has been delayed. Alex Gold with this tweet on X. You don't call it a tweet anymore. It's just an X. An X on X.
A post
an X on
it.
X. But Alex Gold, he says, and you can look at it right now in this tweet, he said, breaking Missouri sports betting launch has been delayed. Secretary of State Denny Hoskins rejected the emergency rules. The go-live date will be now pushed back into the fall. By law, Missouri must launch sports betting by December 1st, 2025. So this is really interesting because we talked last week about this with sports betting, and it was supposed to launch around July 4th, I believe, was the thought process here. So now it has been delayed until the fall. I don't really understand what's going on here and why this was rejected.
Well, because the Missouri legislature has in the past and is trying again to reverse the will of the people. We voted for sports gambling, but there are people in Jefferson City who feel like they can overrule the will of the people and stop things that should happen, that the people want to happen. It's unbelievable to me that this state and they've got these nut jobs in Jefferson City that are so backward that they don't get that the rest of the world is way ahead of them. And so here you see it. Missouri sports betting launch has been delayed. Secretary of State Denny Hoskins rejected the emergency rules. The go-live date will now be pushed back into the fall. I just don't understand how backward some people in Jefferson City are. It's absolutely preposterous. And you think about this.
You don't? You don't? We just gotta play like we don't know that it's just it's a combination of people who are living in a century behind, and another combination of people who this is affecting the money that goes to their pockets, and so they therefore can't let any of us live our lives with any sense of freedom or personal responsibility, and we have to be doted on like children by our lawmakers. I mean that's what this is. There's no question. I don't think there should be any hand-wringing about what this is. This is overreach by the state level government. 100%. And that refuses to back down to the will of the people. And we see it at the city level. We see it at municipality levels, and we're seeing it at the state level. We obviously see it at the federal level all the time. And so it's just run-of-the-mill, screwing over regular people kind of stuff. Not surprising.
I guess I just don't really exactly understand, because you can go literally all the other states surrounding Missouri, you can go and bet. And I understand that gambling is an addiction. I do get that. And that could be part of what's going on here. But at the same time, gambling is something that has been more widely accepted, especially now. And it's also something, when we were talking earlier about loss of revenue for these teams, that Major League Baseball is talking about, you have owners coming out like Art Moreno saying that he's losing $50 million. You have more money coming in if you are able to have sports gambling, I'm assuming. So that's another way to bring more revenue into your team, to your stadium, to your ballpark, whatever it may be. I guess just as somebody who's not born and raised here, of course, I'm a St. Louisan now, I just don't really understand sometimes this part of the process with Missouri lawmakers of why they have this holdup with something that I would assume would bring more progress financially to the area.
Are these sports? How prevalent is it in other parts of, call it what it is, the Bible Belt?
Oh, it's
like
huge.
Has gambling? I mean, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky,
especially in
all
Tennessee
of them
right now.
God
yeah,
bless
so
it. That is the fact that we can't get on that level, and the fact that it's still winning. The fact that it's still winning the argument here tells me one thing: it's probably less of the base like conservative, part of it. It's probably more what I was getting to earlier, which is the people whose money is getting messed with by this new money coming in are the real reason that this is getting stymied, because that's always what it is. You want to find out the real reason for anything in the world, just follow the money.
Well, and here's the part of it, just on Tennessee's side, that I can speak on with Nissan Stadium. I'm sure a lot of people know they're going through a big renovation. They're building a brand new stadium that's going to cost them over $2 billion in Nashville, which affects taxpayers. They've already mapped up, if you look at the renderings, they've already mapped up ways where they show in the renderings. This just kind of shows you how much things have changed in the renderings, how they're going to have gambling as a part of the experience at Nissan Stadium. When you go to a Titans game, which I don't if you want to see Will Levis suffer, you got to find a way to bet on something, I guess. But it just shows you like how they even are capitalizing on that for Nissan Stadium in Tennessee.
Yeah, it's a shame that what is supposed to be, and I know that's on a federal level, but governments in general should be of the people, by the people, and for the people. Well, it's none of these, except for these bozos that get voted in from, like you say, mid-Missouri, who don't understand what the populace really wants or what is right for the state. Now, if I'm DraftKings and FanDuel, at some point I'm going to say to hell with it. If they're going to screw me out of the NFL
awful.
season, right?
That'd be awful.
Yeah, but so if we're going to wait from the 4th of July and we're going to wait till December,
Yeah.
so you've got September, October, November of the NFL season that those entities will miss out on. At some point, they're going to say, you know what? I've got 49 other states that have gambling. I don't need Missouri.
Carol Bland, you would think that Missouri would want their share of that money. That's the other thing. And we talked about this, I think, with other legalities of certain things, certain freedoms. Why are you watching that money just go to other states? And Joe Roderick said, I'll continue to place my bets for my home in Illinois before I drive to Bush.
There's a lot of people who do that.
And we had another one who said, you'd think they want this to be live in the summer ahead of the NFL season. Heck, I think you'd want it during the summer to actually give some reason to pay attention to the Cardinals games.
And the Cardinals really want, and we're behind gambling, and they want it to happen.
Yeah, they're having the mascots with the Blues handing things out, which probably wasn't the best look, but overall it was a nice campaign. Andrew, who was the texter who got into the chat early to let us know about this, says they were trying to speed up the process, but some Missouri government said it is not a situation for quote unquote emergency process, so now it must go through the regular quote parentheses slower process, which pushes it back.
And we voted for it in November.
I get it. I get why he's right about that, and I understand it. But I would just say the loss of revenue by not getting it, by missing the entire summer, and by missing potentially the majority of the NFL season, I would call that an emergency. The state needs some money.
Yeah, I think so. And I know that there's also been a lot of consternation behind the scenes. I've heard from some people who were opposed from the gambling side, because I like to hear all sides of why somebody may or may not be for something. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like from people who were opposed for it would try to say kind of along the lines, and you can kind of help walk me through this, but I know that they had talked about that some of the money would go towards education, but some people didn't believe that voted against it, that it was really going to go to education, like they were saying, or that it wasn't being divvied up in a proper way. Well,
but the fact of the matter is the majority of the people did vote for it. I
Yeah.
understand where they're coming from, but they lost.
Yeah.
And so I feel like as somebody in the majority that did vote for legalized gambling, that now it's the responsibility of the people that I hired in Jefferson City to make sure that my will is done.
I still don't just understand like why it would be stopped or held back, because I mean that's huge.
Because these people are stupid. That's bottom line. It's because these people are stupid.
Oh my gosh.
Well, that's always the easy answer. Is that never put down to what is the quote? I think I'm gonna butcher it, but essentially never put down to malice or evil what you can truly accredit to stupidity. Mm-hmm. And that's my thing here and I think honestly we could probably amend that. Don't tie things to malice or evil that can be answered by stupidity or greed. Because again, I'm not saying all greed is malicious. You might disagree with that statement, but I think again, this is greed. And again, it might be just, some very well-intentioned, Bible thumping, which again is I understand their perspective from that point.
Then don't override the will of don't attempt to override the will of the people.
Yeah, it's get the gambling. The people want it, and if anything, find out ways in the future to use the money to help people who have issues with gambling and those kind of things. I'm a full proponent of those kind of things, but let people live the lives the way they want to, and if this is what they want to do, let them risk their money. That's the thing of it. And more so than anything, at least they're not losing it to the states of Illinois.
Mike Kehoe, Governor, friend, we know you're watching. Put some pressure on these people, okay? Respect the will of the people. Respect the people that voted for you and for gambling, and put some pressure on these people.
And that's the fact of the matter is that if it's voted in, then that's kind of the end of it, you would think, but it just kind of shows you that they still are pushing back. And we want to talk about our newsletter here in a second, but I just had one last thought, and maybe this is just me being a little bit of Debbie Downer on this, but I was telling you earlier, I was reading this JP Morgan data and research on what they had about sports gambling for potential investors. And did you know that with gambling, it's more likely for somebody to, I guess, go back to it if they had an addiction than really any other addiction.
I get that. Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
So it's just so.
But to your
easy.
point, Rockio, if you could do something, more resources for people to help with gambling.
We let the idea that something being addictive doesn't mean we're going to make it illegal out of the barn a very,
because you can still get alcohol.
very long time
Yeah.
ago. And we
Yeah.
tried to put it back in for a little bit, for about a decade, and it didn't go so well. And while some things came from that, like, heroin not being a medicine anymore, we probably pushed a little bit too far, and now we've carried it over, which is
Bring heroin back.
No, that's not what I'm saying. There should be lines. There should be lines somewhere.
Don't tell us what we can and can't use.
This is why the snowball going down the hill is a fallacy, because the answer to when does it stop is it always stops somewhere. We've drawn the line successfully, I think, between alcohol, other gambling, and then that. And so I think we should just let people live their lives. And more importantly, it's just, if everyone around you is doing it and you're losing money, why are you going to keep letting it happen?
Can I make one more point about gambling?
Yes.
I do think that since nobody has ever gambled in Missouri before because it's illegal, I think that nobody has ever gambled in Missouri before, and there's been no money made by anybody because of gambling in the state of Missouri. There hasn't been any money made. So I think that that's one thing that the legislature needs to look at is, hey, maybe this would be a new source of revenue. Nobody's ever taken advantage of this before, but maybe we could do that now.
Also, I'll just say this right now. I just remember being like 14, and me and my friends started playing poker and stuff like that, being extremely confused why every adult we came across freaked out at the idea that we were actually betting our money on poker and stuff like that. I get the idea is you shouldn't be gambling below that age. At the same time, though, I just remember being very young, being like, I mean, it's $10 for poker. What else do you want me to do? Come on now. I'm not doing a lot worse things for $10. Come on now.
Yeah. Tony, the bookie, I know you're out there.
So, Carol, and she said what you guys were saying too, is that Carol said, I voted for it. I personally don't gamble, but Missouri is silly for sitting on their hands watching money go elsewhere. And I agree 100%. Okay. That's what we're talking about, is that everybody else is doing it. Might as well jump in.
So I've always told people, by the way, Jason Hansen, a pregnant Brooke Grimsley saying, bring heroin back is very funny to me. LOL.
I'm going to get randomly drug tested, aren't I? Yeah, I'm going to get randomly. It's like I'm like Aaron Judge, where I'm sure he gets drug tested all the time. Yeah. Yes.
Good point, Brooke. They said that in Illinois it was going to go to education. Never happened. That's from SMFR.
I have heard that from other states. I think that if you do say that it goes towards something, that you actually need to follow up on that. But we have seen where it does bring in a lot of revenue. I would rather, because I hear all the time, and I'm sure you guys too, of people who literally just cross the bridge over to Illinois so that they can place a bet, then come back to Missouri. Why not keep that in the state?
Right. And you know what? We could go off on a tangent and do an hour-long show on legalized gambling. But here's one of the things. Why in the first place did we say the money was going to education? Why didn't we say that money should go to sports stadiums? The people that are sports betting.
Oh, but then it's going to go towards the billionaires. You know how that's not going to land.
But you know what?
With people.
If it doesn't go towards the billionaires, tax money is, right?
Yeah.
How did the Blues get the Enterprise Center renovated? Yeah, they spent a lot of their own money, but they got tax money. What are the Chiefs asking for in Kansas City? What did the Royals ask for in Kansas City? Why not have the money generated from sports gambling, which isn't a lot, by the way, go to helping build stadiums and sports facilities? And that includes, by the way, University of Missouri, that includes Missouri State, that includes UMSL, that includes all of the state schools.
I mean, political expedience. It's easier to say we're going to help teachers and families than it is to say we're going to put the money into sports.
Okay.
It sounds nicer.
It does. It sounds a lot nicer.
We've got
a pretty little
nope, Randy, not really. Nope. We're kind of going the opposite way there.
Okay.
we used to be ranked in things.
No, I mean, KidSmart is a charitable endeavor that provides teachers with resources to give their kids the proper tools to learn.
I thought you were saying that kids were smart.
No, I always try to contribute and volunteer with my friends at KidSmart. It's a great St. Louis institution. Hey, you need to make sure that you've subscribed to our YouTube page and like the video that you're tuned into right now. Just click two things. Click subscribe and click like if you haven't already done so. Go to sportshubstl.com. I'll bet you already have because you're there right now if you're watching us. And sign up for the Hub newsletter sent to your inbox twice a week and anytime St. Louis sports news breaks. The first edition goes out at noon. And all subscribers are entered to win a $250 StubHub gift card to use towards any St. Louis sports tickets you want. That's right. Sign up now. Be one of the first 500 to sign up, and you might win that $250 StubHub gift card. It's just the first of many subscriber-only prizes here at StubHub or at what's our name? Sports Hub STL?
Yep.
StubHub, Sports Hub, whatever. It's sportshubstl.com. We're going to announce the winner tomorrow here on this show, by the way.
That's really hard to say. Sports Hub, StubHub,
Yeah.
and then saying that over and over.
I was
again.
confused.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I would be confused too. I've been confused a lot here lately.
It's time for the Grim
Grim
Report.
Report. All right. So we just did some breaking news there. So that's what set us back a little bit on the schedule. But that's what we do here on the show is that we will give you instant reaction to breaking news.
Yeah.
But now for the Grim Report, what was your story of the weekend? So for me personally, it was the Blues coming back from Four Nations, that amazing tournament. And you know that right now, okay, the playoff chances for the Blues are extremely slim. So I'm not saying that they're trying to push for the playoffs. Things right now are more about evaluating this team and figuring out who is a part of this core. We talked to Jeremy Rutherford last week about Robert Thomas, him taking on a bigger role, especially if they're going to move on from some of these veteran core players like a Braden Shin. And the response from Robert Thomas in that first game back against the Jets, which is one of the best teams in the NHL right now, I think says a lot about Robert Thomas and what he's able to do. So my big story of the weekend is Robert Thomas, his performance, his 100th career goal, by the way, on Saturday that he was able to get. He had 2 goals and 3 assists. That was a great response from Robert Thomas just coming out of that Four Nations break.
I just think he needs to be more consistent. I want to get 55 good games a year out of Robert Thomas. I don't want to get 40 good games a year out of Robert Thomas.
Yeah.
And apparently his ankle and foot has been bothering him. He's not 100% healthy. But the fact of the matter is he's one of your best players. He's not maybe one of your best players.
Well, he's got the big contract. Yeah.
Right. He's one of your best guys, and you need to get maximum production out of him. I also think, Brooke, that he makes a lot of people on this team better, but maybe the most notable one is Pavel Buchnevich.
Which is a great game for him.
Yeah, he had a great game Saturday night, and hopefully Robert can kind of drag Buchnevich into the fight. There's people around the team, by the way, that are saying that Buchnevich is so different than he was a couple of years ago, that he's essentially, and we see it, but they're feeling it, that he's a different player than the one that was so good a couple of years ago. He's extraordinarily gifted, like we saw on Saturday.
Oh, he's very skilled.
But he just needs to get he's another guy. I need to see 55 or 60 good games a year. I don't even need to see 82. You give me 55 to 60 good games up to your potential out of those guys, I'm a happy camper.
Yeah. What was your story of the weekend?
Love Ollie. And I think this is a good year for Ollie because Ollie is going to be teaching young players. Even if the Cardinals don't win, if the individuals are getting incrementally better and the unit is getting incrementally better, that's what I want to see. I want to see an upward trajectory. That being said, I was sorely disappointed yesterday when he left Sem Roberse in the game to allow 9 hits in 2/3 of an inning. 9 hits, 7 runs, 9 hits, 9 runs. 7 of those runs were earned. And here you are, and I know it happened quickly. It happened in 33 pitches. But I do think that sometimes you can bury a guy by allowing him to get beat up like Sem Roberse did. And I wish that the Cardinals would have gotten him out of there before he developed an earned run average of, I think, 94.
It was awful. It was really bad. He got shelled in that game. And here's the thing is that I could maybe see it maybe just from the other perspective of, well, if we're saying you need to, what you have with these young guys, especially young pitchers, then we saw what we had. He was not great whatsoever. But to your point, I can imagine that really hurts a player's psyche, especially a young player's psyche, to be left in that situation.
Yeah, and he obviously just didn't have it at all on the day. 2/3 of an inning, 9 hits, 9 runs, 7 earned, which kept his earned run average down to 94.5. Down to 94.5.
Ooh. All right. What was your story of the weekend, Rocky?
I'm gonna have to go with City getting the season started again, and obviously not the best way to start it with another draw. What'd you say?
You're not in a bubble.
Am I not in the bubble? Sorry,
You're just a mystery voice to everybody.
There he is. I'm out of the bubble now. Let's fix the camera so it looks a little better. There we go. Now I'm out of the bubble and now I'm talking. So City had their season opening game. Obviously, it was unfortunate that they walked away with a 1-1 draw, considering they completely outplayed and outclassed the Colorado Rapids. I mean, not surprising, a team from St. Louis outclassing a team owned by Stan Kroenke.
No doubt.
But they completely outplayed them. They were coming off the Rapids, that is, were coming off a big season opening win of their own, 2-0, in which they really only won from free kicks. So far, they haven't really created any offense in open play so far. And that includes against City, where they had 2 shots, I think. Olaf, essentially said, we outshot them with quality chances, about 18-0. And the fact that you walk away that, again, with a draw and not a win, that's the disappointing part from City. But overall, City Park has just incredible atmosphere, as I should call it. Energizer Park has an incredible atmosphere. They did this cool thing that you'll see at concerts where everyone who walked in had a wristband with like an LED light that would then light up
cool.
like in relation to the song they were playing. I know some people aren't happy about the song, but champagne problems, I guess. And so people are a little bit mad about the lack of finishing, but the atmosphere was incredible. The scheme and the team under Olaf Melberg looked like it's going to be a defensive monster, and they created the chances. There'll be a point where they finish them. And so I think it's looking pretty good with City. That was a really good start to the season. And so I'm pretty excited. And I think there's a lot of people in St. Louis who are pretty excited about what they saw.
Oh, it looked absolutely electric, which it always does. I know that I've said that in the past. It always looks absolutely electric. They do such a good job of just kind of a game experience and getting you fully involved. I think it's so unique, especially when you compare it to going to other games here in St. Louis, that you have that expectation going in that you have to be energetic the entire time.
Yeah, and I kind of like it because I think, Brooke, you've I don't know if you want to actually rehash this. You've criticized sometimes the atmosphere at certain other St. Louis games.
No.
And I'm with you. I think the atmosphere at certain other, maybe the 2 largest major sports, atmospheres don't have that same constant, consistent, every moment feels like you're at an event kind of thing. And City has that locked down, and it's one of the best parts about being there. And they're always innovating. Again, this is a new thing that, we've seen stadiums do this thing. The Tigers will do the tiger stripe thing where your ticket says, or you're based on where your ticket is, you can look at the graphic that they put out there and says you're supposed to wear white or you're supposed to wear black or gold. So you get the tiger stripe effect. We've seen people, get handed different like placards or on your seat, then you hold them up at different times. I thought it was just one of the better fan and stadium interactions I've ever seen. And the fact that they're always trying to innovate, I really do appreciate it. And based on their play on the field, they are innovating both off the field and on the field. And that's really what you want when you're talking about a team that, again, is still only in its 3rd year of on the field existence, and I guess technical 4th year of existence overall.
And I think that's why you see more younger kids wearing City stuff. I don't know, when you're out and about, I think you see more kids and younger adults even wearing City stuff. And I need to address what you're saying, because I don't think I've actually said this on air, Rockio, where you're trying to tell me that I rehashed something.
you've said that.
Have I
you've said Blues games are.
I was surprised. So
because of the way that Nashville has turned it into like a college game atmosphere. And listen, I'm with you. I love going to Blues games, but the fact that there are so many lulls does kind of throw me off. And
the Blues have even tried to address that. Yeah. So the Blues have tried to even address that too, of adding more, like they added the DJ if you've been to the Blues games. Because for me, and I understand it from the fans' perspective, because I have talked to people about this, and you guys can weigh in on this too. It's because sports fans here are so into the game that they prefer to cheer at the right moments. It's kind of the same thing at Busch Stadium, right? Is that they prefer to cheer or not cheer at the right moments because they're so just into the game. So I understand that. It was just surprising to me. My first Blues game that I came here, you could hear a pin drop. You could hear a pin drop, and you could hear the skates on the ice. And I was like, whoa, this is so different, because obviously growing up in Tennessee, I'd only been to Nashville Predators games. And there it's like a party because it's right on Broadway, if you guys have been to it. And it's just absolutely nuts in there. And there's nothing wrong with either one, because I think it fits the environments, if that makes any sense.
Well, there's a lot of 30, 40, and 50-year-old Blues season ticket holders. A large percentage of those people are there because of the hockey, and it's not necessarily a party for them. They're there to watch the competition. I just think it's probably a different demographic for a 20, 25, 30-year-old expansion team, as opposed to a team where people that used to come to the games in mink coats and suits are still part of the demographic there.
Yeah, it's definitely different. Mink coats and suits. Can we bring that back going to sporting events?
You know what, Randy? If that was the actual aesthetic in the stands, I would say, you know what? Fair trade-off. If we're gonna look like the 1940s out here, fine. I'll trade that off for it being a calmer aesthetic. But the fact of the matter is most people are showing up in, Canadian tuxedos with a Busch Light, rocked and ready in both hands. And so I do feel like more of an atmosphere would be called upon. It throws me off how quiet it gets at times during games there. But I'm not surprised though, because again, I've brought this up before and I get hammered every time, and I don't care because I was there and you can't tell me it didn't happen. But I got screamed at all the time during Rams games by people who didn't like that I was standing up during a big play.
Really?
And so
you should have been in section 414. You shouldn't have been down in your snooty seats.
Exactly. That's the problem. Knowing me and my lifestyle, the first time I ever went to a Rams game was 2002, and I sat in the 400s. It was one of the greatest days of my life because they beat the Raiders to open up. They finally get a win that season. But it's a weird thing. I kind of agree with you, Brooke. I hate that it's something that bothers me, but I bring it up because I want us to change it. And listen, I love
the Blues
mentality.
are trying to change.
They
it
are trying
even.
to change it, and
Yeah.
also to the Blues' credit, or to give them some, take it off of their shoulders a little bit. The game is also better built and easier built in soccer to never have stoppages, considering the game never has stoppages. And so it's a lot easier for the team to go, well, we never sit down and you're always standing up and cheering because there's almost always something happening. Hockey, there's a lot more stoppages. And my biggest issue, and I think is a problem, the intermissions are so long when you're actually at the game. I feel like it really like when you're at home, the intermissions feel so fast because you go to the kitchen, you get something to drink, you make yourself a snack, you go to the bathroom, and the intermissions just don't go that quickly.
You're supposed to go games. Up and spend money in those 18 minutes.
That's the thing, is I'm supposed to go stand in line and get food and drink.
And
exactly, you're right about that, Randy. But I'm strategic when I go to these events, so they're not getting my money that way.
It does feel like sometimes you could get shamed. I was surprised because, when I was growing up and going to Predators games, I mean, Blues fans travel well, and there would be Blues fans that come, that would go over to, oh my gosh, I already forgot, Bridgestone Arena. Mm-hmm. Why did I forget what it was called? Bridgestone Arena. And they were standing the whole time and loud and like all the different kind of stuff. So when I came to St. Louis, I was like, okay, those are the Blues fans I experienced when they would come to Nashville. And then I was surprised that same kind of, energy wasn't inside the building, I guess was the best thing or the thing that I'm thinking of. Well, I was just surprised because I remember specifically when I went to a game, I think I was in college, Blues fans were like in front of me and they were standing the whole time loud and just kind of like barking back and forth, which I appreciate that kind of stuff. It makes it fun. Mm-hmm. And so I was thinking that it'd be like that too.
And that's the thing. You've got a lot of people in their late 50s, 60s, 70s that are in the most expensive seats at Blues games.
Rip it up
and
cards.
Those people aren't going out and staying up till 3 a.m. on Broadway drinking.
No.
No. There's a lot of people staying on Broadway drinking. Rip it up cards. It's the city. We have seasoned Battlehawks games, and there are ushers asking us to sit down all the time so everyone can see. We've had this debate on a previous iteration of this show about the standing up and sitting down aspects of different games. I don't know if we want to dive into that again. We also have a troll in the comments. Our Kansas City Royals fan, 8998. I'm not going to put his comments up, but I do want to say he is talking a lot of mess about how much better Kansas City is than St. Louis. I don't know anybody from St. Louis who spends their morning trolling Kansas City shows for pointless reasons. Mm-hmm. But sure, I guess things are going so great on the other side of the state that you're doing this at 11:13 in your morning. So obviously things are going great on the other side of the state for you there, champ.
And Fat Bob says Blues games are hella fun. What are y'all talking about? They are fun. I'm not saying they're not. I don't think anybody says that they're not.
I'm not saying they're not fun.
It's just that it's different. You go everywhere, but that's kind of the expectation is that every different area has different expectations. It's just when you go to a city game, you're expected to stand like the whole time, be it, just like cheering loud, all that. At Enterprise Center, I think you might get kicked out if you did that like the entire game.
And the thing is there are a lot of people, and that's one of the things about this market, that are going to see what happens between the white lines. They aren't going to scream. They aren't going to drink. Not that doesn't happen at all St. Louis sporting events, but there's a lot of people that are just interested in the sport, and that's why they're going.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just kind of like the expectation here.
I don't know a lot of sports fans who don't like. I don't know a lot of people who are sports fans who don't like want to cheer loudly at an event. I guess is what I'm confused by.
Some people just want to, I guess, just sit and observe more into the game.
And one of the genius aspects to the Cardinals when they were dipping into this era of mediocrity is that they did turn their games into an event. It was a place to be seen rather than a place to watch a game.
I liked Hell's Bells a lot too, because I thought that was so different for the Cardinals organization and baseball in general, just to kind of embrace that more player individual personality. And then so many people look forward to when Helsley comes out of the pen, that you have that expectation of that big moment out there at Busch Stadium.
So and there's nothing wrong. It's being at an event and being able to go into work on Monday morning and
don't you dare make this a classy thing. No, it's not. It's not. There's nothing unclassy about screaming at events.
There's people, they've got their pinky out when they're drinking their
bring
bourbon.
back mink coats at games is what we're saying.
We need to do. That's part of the weekend, JJ Weatherholt.
We have to pick an aesthetic. Everyone in St. Louis has to start dressing nicer to games, or we got to get a little bit rowdier. I'm not saying, whipping batteries at, lovable wintertime characters. I'm just saying there's a little bit more energy between puck drops is all I'm asking for. That's all I'm saying.
They fixed the sound system.
They did. It's a really good sound system.
That's good.
Now.
Yeah. That is good.
And again, they're trying, and I appreciate that. And the Cardinals are trying, and sometimes, not every year are the Mets going to come up with an idea that you can steal outright. So every couple of years, you'll get something that another team does, and you can completely jack that, and we can have fun with it for a little bit, and we'll come up with a new idea in a couple of years after somebody else comes up with it first.
So what you're saying is that if you aren't going to go scream and drink and be wild and rowdy, just stay at home and watch it on TV. Because Matthew doesn't want to see people in the stands that are there for the game.
If you're in the stands, are you not there to cheer? Fans in the stands clapping their hands, cheering, go fight, win.
No, nobody claps their hands anymore. Everybody's holding their phone.
Well, exactly. I'm trying to get back to the grassroots. Anyway, we had a premise on this segment that was, what's your story of the weekend? Cards fan 81, best part of the weekend, JJ Weatherholt. That's as soon as he hit that home run, everyone freaked out, and I immediately
thought he was a home run hitter.
Yeah. I immediately went to the negative side, which was it wasn't a home run in any current Major League Baseball park, but I was correctly then responded to that while it was not a home run in any Major League Baseball park, it was a 660 XBA, which means he's ripping that off the wall in pretty much every other park other than it's not a home run, it's just a rip double. And so I loved watching that. The swing looks clean. It's hard not to get excited about JJ Weatherholt right now if you're a Cardinals fan.
Yeah, and he seems like Ricky was talking about earlier, and you can go back and listen to that interview after the show, but Ricky was just talking about that he kind of carries himself like a big leaguer, and we're not trying to push him ahead, because I know that's also been a big issue where we're pushing guys ahead, but I like what I see from JJ Weatherholt so far.
And by the way, we should point out when the Cardinals make an event, Andrew on the YouTube chat, and use YouTube chat for us literally. Andrew says, Cardinals concert series after 2 games this year with Cole Swindell and Florida.
It's not Florida. Florida.
How's it spelled?
Florida.
Florida. Florida.
But there's a separation. There's a reason why there's a space between the flow and the rida.
Florida.
Randy gets up on concert. Everybody, I'd like to introduce you to the lead singer of the Black Eyed Peas, William.
Thank you.
Instead of Will done. I am.
Yeah, Cole Swindell is coming to town again.
They have to have you intro Cole Swindell. So
Cole Swindell sounds like a major league left-hander that's played for like 7 teams. A left-handed reliever. And Cole Swindell. There used to be a Greg Swindell. So that's what Cole Swindell sounds like. Is a major league lefty that's played for about 7 teams, doesn't it?
Yeah, he does.
Michael Green.
He's a country boy.
Country boy. Cole Swindell.
Michael Green jumps in here. I'm sure that the atmosphere at City Park, Energizer Park now, is great, but in my view, watching soccer is just boring in comparison to hockey. I'd pick a Blues game over soccer any day. Then shouldn't it be really easy if the game is more exciting than to have the entire atmosphere always up and amped to a higher level, which is kind of me and Brooke's point. Nashville figured it out, which is we have a very high-octane game. We can carry that into the stands, and they figured out how to do it. My point is that it's kind of odd that the Blues haven't connected those dots.
Okay. Royals fan 8998. When guys going to stop being pansies and start taking calls? It said that's the question. When guys gonna stop being pansies and start taking calls?
Yeah, that's the Royals troll, the KC guy.
Oh, take calls. Can we take calls?
Who again?
We had Ricky Horton on.
I thought the job market was doing better over on KC. I thought maybe he'd have some work to do today instead of saying I need to take calls to a station of a city that I don't live in that talks about teams that I don't like and topics that I don't agree with.
Why should we allow somebody like you who doesn't like us clearly and thinks we're pansies, why should we allow you to call in on our show anyway?
I kind of like the idea.
Honestly,
of it,
I mean,
though.
if you don't like us, you think we're pansies, but you like St. Louis sports, I'll find a way to take that call.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, just I don't care enough about the west side of this state to take your call.
And our YouTube chat of the day comes from Schoolboy Rowe. Ha 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 ha. Thank you, Schoolboy.
Oh my god.
Former major league pitcher, by the way.
I
Schoolboy
love
Rowe.
it. I love it. I think we need to have callers. I think that's what we should do. That was a really long Grim report because we got to move up. We're still doing your benchmark, right, Rockio?
No, I talked about City
Oh,
already,
just
which is
kidding.
it was a good game. It was people are mad that they can't finish. Great atmosphere. The one thing I didn't mention that I will mention.
Blues and City, neither can finish.
There you go.
Hey, they closed out yesterday.
Yeah, they did. I will say, San Diego FC, which is the new expansion team, premiered last night in their first game.
And they won.
And they did. In City, that's their next game this weekend, is there in San Diego, facing off against San Diego FC. San Diego FC looked very good.
And I love the originality of the name FC. I think that's just fantastic.
I love that.
Yeah, I don't know how they thought. They must have had a contest, I guess, to determine.
Yeah. FC, very unique. You don't really hear it much.
No, you don't.
In soccer or
No,
football.
you don't think you
Football.
would, considering it's a soccer league. It's the major league of soccer. So it's weird to have a football club in there, in my opinion. Kind of odd.
Well, we got an SC.
Exactly.
And we obviously had a name the team contest too.
Yes. And the correct name won. And
Over FC?
Yes, that too. I was mainly going
Or Steamers?
the City.
Ain't no stopping us now.
Yes, San Diego
We're
FC
on
looks
the-
really good, so it's going to be a trickier match than I think maybe some people expected with the fact that it's an expansion team. At the same time, you saw the success an expansion team can have first and foremost right in front of you 2 years ago, so maybe don't be that surprised when it's a tough game over the weekend.
Do people need to know about Cards Up
They
365 coming up?
do.
It's powered by Gray Bar, and it comes up today at 3 right here on Sports Hub STL. Joe Roderick and Mike Claiborne will be live right here on Sports Hub STL on the YouTube page after the Cardinals face the Mets in Jupiter. You can also get the show on demand from YouTube following the live broadcast, as well as on Apple, Spotify, or any other major podcast outlet. Cards Hub 365, daily Cardinals content right here on Sports Hub STL, powered by Gray Bar. What a cool looking Cardinal logo that is. That's
That
just
is
a
really
beautiful
cool.
thing.
I love the Angry Bird.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Now it's time for today's overarching, which we're just kind of closing out the show. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, make sure that you ask it on the chat. And you can also like and subscribe. Please do that.
Can I refer, by the way, to our friend? I assume he's our friend because he's listening.
Are you still talking to this guy?
Royals fan 8998. I will give you this.
Oh, no.
No, it's no. I mean, and
If you guys
thought
thought I was a dog with a bone with a troll,
no,
Randy Karraker is the king.
I am actually going to say this: that I think I love Kansas City. I think it's great. I think they've done a great job with their community. Obviously, their football team is really good. Their baseball team.
If they stay over there, they
Mhm.
might move to Kansas.
I know that'd be sad, but
Yeah.
there's still Kansas City, and he's still a Royals fan, I'm sure. No, I think Kansas City has done a lot of really good things that we could take a page from in our community and
Oh.
follow along. I think that I don't hate Kansas City. I like Kansas City. And yes, I'm a pansy because I'm not taking calls. But here's the thing with calls, Royals fan. The reason that we don't take calls is because a lot of times, and number one, we don't have the setup for it at this podcast. But the other thing is people will call in, like if we're talking about the Cardinals and they'll say, yeah, I want to talk about that crowd at St. Louis City SC the other night. You can edit the chat room much better than you can edit a phone call. Believe me, I did a lot of years of taking phone calls, and I built a career on it. But it's easy and lazy media, and so we aren't going to do that here. But we do appreciate you tuning in, and we will respond to your texts from your great city every single day.
I wouldn't mind a phone call every once in a while.
That'd be fun if you get
We
the
could do
right
it every
person.
once in a while where we could just chirp back at somebody just to get out some anger
What
if you need to.
Yeah, what you need to do is you need to get a Feinbaum type listenership.
Oh,
that'll
yes.
call in.
Oh, my God. I love the Feinbaum calls
They're
in.
great.
They're so good.
Yeah.
I can
They're
just
so
yell,
good.
I can just yell, but pow every couple of minutes, and we can like kind of do a Feinbaum thing.
Yeah.
It's old school radio, right? It's
Ba-pow!
old school radio, what they were able to do. I don't know. Somebody said, Ghostface Gaming said, calls are boring anyways. Most peeps are annoying. Texts are way better.
I agree.
I agree. I agree too. I like phone calls every once in a while too. There's a show that I only see exclusively on TikTok that's in Toronto where they will like give people dating advice. If we can get phone calls like that, like that's what we should do for Uncle Randy. They can call in and get dating advice.
Oh, we can do that. You guys want to do that on Wednesday?
Or they can
Yeah.
text in, and that's just much better.
But also, I like to hear like the emotions.
I'm not.
behind
I'm
people.
not.
Are you going to build us a text line?
We have a text line. What are you talking about? It's right here.
What's the
A
number?
chat.
It's the chat. It's the
Oh,
chat.
that's right, yeah.
That is our text line, Randy. And by the way, speaking
Okay.
of the text line, we only have a few minutes left in the show.
Let's do Ask Uncle Randy on Wednesday. Okay, that I'm done.
Yes.
There it is. We'll do Ask Uncle Randy on Wednesday. But I want to close out the show with our overarching item of the day. I do want to get some chats that we were not able to get to earlier because we got a lot of conversation going during the Cardinals discussion. So I just want to get to some of these chats we weren't able to get to. John Red, the fact that Helsley is still on this team is a huge disaster. Going back to the trades this team did or did not make, I think some people are still reacting to that Helsley one. And I kind of feel that because if it is going to be a youth
value's
movement,
high.
it's kind of a weird move.
His value is really high, and you really hope that he doesn't get injured before the trade deadline.
That's the thing. Did he have a year before last year where he didn't get hurt?
No.
And he's making $8 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His value is so high
Right.
going into this
Still might be
offseason.
right now.
Yeah. And you just hope, I'm sure the Cardinals are doing it too. You cross your fingers that nothing happens.
And for a really good team that needs a closer, $8 million is a bargain.
Yeah. It's confusing though, because it's hard because I don't want to see the team just absolutely lose, but Ryan Helsley was a big part of them winning last year. So I don't know if that's also a part of it where they say they're kind of teetering on that line of it's a reset. We kind of still want to win.
But here's the thing. If you want to develop a young closer, is there anybody in baseball better to do it than Dusty Springfield?
Dusty, that's not his name. You always make me forget his actual last name.
Oh, Blake Lively.
Dusty Blake. Yes. I always want to say like Dusty Baker, but obviously that's not it.
Gotcha.
John Hansen says, I can't stand the we don't know what we have in these guys argument. I don't want to waste multiple years on lame duck seasons to be a mediocre team at best.
So that means you got to trade for people or sign free agents, and the Cardinals aren't going to be doing that.
No, they're not doing that anymore.
No. So
whatsoever.
it's got to be kids. Hey,
Yeah.
50% would be a good batting average of these kids working out. If you look at, if we say there's on the 26-man roster, let's say there's 20 young players, and then you have Contreras, Arenado, Sonny Gray, Michaelis, a couple of other veterans.
Yeah.
If half of the youngsters work out, the Cardinals will have done extraordinarily well in developing them. If Jordan Walker doesn't make it, he fits into the majority of players. If there's a lot of Jurickson Profar and Oscar Taveras were the top two prospects in 2013. I would argue that neither of them worked out. And so often the best prospect in baseball doesn't work out.
Yeah, I would just rather know what you have with these young players because at the same time, you don't want to also see them go off and have success elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That happens. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
Just one last one. I thought this was kind of funny from
Okay.
Cronky Hater. How about Edmonds saying veterans aren't welcome and we see David Freese at camp?
It's kind of funny, isn't it?
It's kind of funny.
Yeah, they are welcome. A great job today by our producer, audio, video engineer, the one, the only Matthew Rocchio, who got all of the cameras to stay on for the whole show today.
Yay!
Thank you,
Assuming
sir.
you,
That's
assuming
the
you do wrap
energy.
Good
this.
job, brother.
See, that's the energy he wants.
That's the
to see
energy we
Blues
want.
games.
Brooke,
yeah,
did you have fun today?
I did, of course.
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
We had a great time. We thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And thank you for chatting with us on the YouTube chat. For all of us, have a magnificent Monday, St. Louis and the world.